The folklore is that many early stock car drivers started their careers in the moonshine business. Saloon cars with souped-up engines were used to transport bootleg whiskey across the state line. A small industry grew up around building the cars.
The revenue agents would chase the moonshiner cars at night over those two-lane roads up in the hills of Georgia and the Carolinas. And a fellow named Red Vogt had a garage in Atlanta, Georgia, and he built the cars for the moonshiners in one section of the garage, and he built the cars for the revenue agents in another section of the garage. He kept them separate. One day I asked Red who got the best cars. He said, well, the moonshiners paid cash. The government agents, you had to wait 90 days to get your money from Washington. Figure it out.
Stock car racing evolved when drivers adapted family cars, cars taken from stock in the showroom. Races were run on short circuits wherever they could attract a crowd, like state fairgrounds or horse race tracks.
You worked on a regular job. Most of us had garages or something automotive to do. And then at night, after we finished our day's work, we'd work on our race cars. Then Friday night, we'd take off for wherever we were going to race. And we stayed in the same old motels or hotels. We stayed the same place, we ate together. We tried to travel together because the cars that we pulled with weren't too good and they'd break down and we'd pitch in and help each other. And we'd fight like hell, drink like hell. It was a pretty wild scene. And we got to the point where if you were a racer, you couldn't buy any insurance, you couldn't borrow any money, and we were second-class citizens, no question about it. We were about the same status, social status, as the guy that rode on the back of the garbage truck. It was recognized the doors fly open in a crash, so you'd take your belt off and wind the back window down enough to get the belt around on both sides, and that was your safety equipment. And if you didn't have a belt, you got a piece of rope.
Stock car racing was informal. It had no governing body to set standards for safety. It was dangerous and it was spectacular. This multiple crash at Langhorne, Pennsylvania in 1951 demonstrated the danger and the spectacle.
Blinded by the smoke, many of the oncoming drivers seem helpless to avoid the nightmare in front of them. Nobody here at Langhorne will ever know. 10 drivers were hurt too seriously in what will long remain stock car racing's most spectacular crack-up.
Stock car races were held all over the country, but Daytona Beach in Florida became the spiritual home of the sport. Its long and flat beach was used for land speed record attempts. When these moved to Utah in 1936, Daytona lost an attraction. So local business interests promoted a stock car race to fill the void. A circuit was laid out using the beach and the road which ran alongside it.
They get away, that is, for 160 miles of top-speed straightaways and sizzling turns. 10,000 spectators line the beach road course at Daytona to watch this year's stock car race, and close attention is paid to the turns.
These jalopy jockeys are in for a jarring, jolting time, and they know it, and we know it. So hold on tight. The turnover is terrific.
And it was financial turnover, which was the attraction after the Second World War. Stock car racing looked like becoming a profitable business. In 1947, NASCAR, the National Association of Stock Car Auto Racing, was formed to set down rules and promote races. A permanent speedway was opened at Daytona in 1959. To give spectators added excitement, the new circuit was steeply banked for high speeds and neck-and-neck racing. The rules that cars had to be stock models were steadily changed under the pressure of racing.
When we first started, they run strictly stock cars. First thing they did was break wheels, so that they let them build the wheels up. Then they built the wheels up and they started breaking hubs. They let them build the hubs up, they broke spindles, and they let them build the spindles up. They broke tie rod ends and, all the deals. So over a period of time, it grew into a full-fledged race car.
The high-speed close racing on the back track gave rise to a new tactic known as the slingshot.
Somebody discovered that if you, a driver, are following another car very close, we're talking about 2 inches off the bumper, front bumper off the back bumper, that the other car will drag you or pull you along. 2 cars can run faster like that than 1 car can run alone. If you time it properly, you can draft behind a car, pull out to pass him, and slingshot past him. That's where the name slingshot came about, because you just slingshot by him and pull out in front of him. And of course, he'll do the same thing back to you again.
Close racing was what the spectators wanted. In the first race at the new speedway, that's what they got. The lead swapped back and forth between 2 of the fastest drivers, Johnny Beauchamp in a Ford Thunderbird and Lee Petty in an Oldsmobile. Beauchamp was judged the winner on the day, but 3 days later, after all the photographs had been studied, Petty was declared the victor by a fraction of a second. Either way, the crowd had got its money's worth. Today, stock car racing is the most popular motorsport in America, attracting substantial corporate sponsors. These cars are preparing for the Pepsi 400-mile race, which is part of the Winston Cup Series, the premier stock car championship. Part of its success lies in the prominence it brings to American car manufacturers.
Here as a race fans can go out and identify the car. I drive a Ford, Dale Earnhardt drives a Chevrolet, so on and so forth. Rusty Wallace drives a Pontiac. And they can product identify to it. To where an Indianapolis type car, it's not really this or it's not really that. It's hard to visually look at it and say it's this particular car. And I think that's why NASCAR and the Winston Cup Series has become so popular.
The audience identify with the cars by their name and shape, but under the bonnet is an engine fitted only for racing. Strict rules govern what modifications can be made in an attempt to control speed and increase safety. With the rules so tightly drawn, the teams look for any way they can to get an edge over the competition. There's been a long-standing battle of wits between the organizers and the mechanics.
They would say that the gas tank got to hold 22 gallons. Well, that was a fair rule, but they didn't say how big the gas line could be. So I would put a gas line on it that held 7 gallons. And then they would take the gas tank out, and maybe if they got you mad, you could, while they were holding the gas tank or inspecting it, you could drive the car all over a hill. And then, of course, somebody would say, how the hell do you drive that car with no gas tank? And so they're looking for a secret gas tank, but it wasn't nothing secret about it, just a great big fuel line. It didn't say in the rule book you couldn't have it.
From its origins in bootlegging and beach racing, stock car racing is now firmly established in America as part of the mainstream of motorsport. The drivers perform as much for the paying spectators as for themselves. The Speedway can seat 100,000 people. On race day, they come from all over the country. There's room for 200 cars in the garage area. Here, the fans can meet their heroes, the drivers, and swap stories with them. For the drivers, being accessible to the public is all part of the job. Many of today's stars are the sons of past winners. They've been brought up to treat racing as a family business.
A race car driver's son can learn about race cars at a much earlier age than a businessman's son could learn about his father's business just by being around the race shops and traveling on the road, working in the pits and working in the garage areas. We had an advantage over anybody else that would have to wait many more years to get that same experience.
They're going to get some good stuff tomorrow. They're going to sit in turn 4 and watch.
Oh, excellent. My father and grandfather built a little dirt track the year I was born. So I've always been around the sport. And when I turned 5 years old, for some reason, my father decided it was time for me to start racing. He built my first little race car, a little go-kart, raced on the inside of this big track. So I've been involved in the sport all my life and been driving since I was 5 years old.
Coming off turn number 4 now.
At last, it's decision time for the cars, the drivers, and especially the high-spending sponsors. 40 cars line up for the big race. It begins with a rolling start. For the drivers, this is the moment of greatest tension.
The start of the race is probably the most dangerous time and the most nervous time for a driver. You've got all the cars in line, and when that starter drops the green flag, you know, everyone's accelerating. Someone could miss a shift or cause an accident, so you're really careful there.
Well, I think from the spectator standpoint, that's when all the adrenaline gets to flowing, and probably from the driver's standpoint too. And then all of a sudden they turn 40 high-powered cars loose, and they all try to get in the first corner side by side.
There's no space, there's no time to react. Traveling at 200 miles an hour here at Daytona, that's roughly the length of a football field per second. So if something happens, it happens quick, and you don't have time to think.
We don't feel like it's dangerous. Most of the people in the sport don't look at it as being dangerous. Every once in a while we'll have accidents and stuff, and somebody gets hurt. You know, once in a long while somebody gets killed, but we have more problems getting to and from the racetrack. We get more people hurt, more drivers hurt going to and from than we do at the racetrack, because the cars are built to withstand the speeds and the wrecks and stuff that we get into.
Nobody was seriously hurt in this accident in 1990. The race was stopped and restarted. Today, with safer cars and strict rules, multiple pileups still happen, but they're less dangerous than 50 years ago.
Well, there are a lot of guys who are retired who I'm good friends with from knowing them for so long, and they can look back and say, you know, the money wasn't all that great back then, but the thrill of winning was just as good, and it is. The thrill of winning right now is just as strong as it ever has been, and it's even more of an accomplishment right now. You know, in years past, there were 4 or 5 dominant teams who won all the races in a given season, and we have anywhere from right now 18 to 20 different people who have a possibility of winning every week.